I'm Zoe. I'm sitting in my new car, a used dark blue Honda Civic with 62,000 miles and a small scratch on the rear bumper. I told the dealer to leave the scratch. It's not about perfection, it's about ownership. I paid in full with the $14,000 from my ex-mother-in-law, what I'd saved riding the bus, and a small hospital bonus. The title is in my name only. As I sit here, hands on the wheel, breathing in the smell of cleaning solution, I'm reminded of how far I've come. It all started when I got home from a 12-hour shift at the hospital. It was a Tuesday in November, one of those gray mornings when the sky seemed to hang so low you could touch it. I was exhausted. For 12 hours, I'd been on my feet, moving from room to room, checking patients' vitals, and holding the hand of an elderly woman whose family hadn't visited in weeks. My feet throbbed with every heartbeat, and my lower back ached with a tension that no amount of stretching could relieve. My scrubs reeked of antiseptic and the sorrow of others. All I wanted was a hot shower and my bed. But when I turned onto our street and pulled up to the house in my coworker Ava's car, she'd given me a ride because I was too tired to drive, and my husband Ethan was supposed to bring my car to the hospital that morning, I knew something was wrong. My parking spot, the left side of the driveway where I'd parked every day for 5 years, was empty. It wasn't that someone had parked in my spot, nor that Ethan had moved the car to wash it. It was just empty, as if my silver Ford Focus had never existed. I sat there in Ava's car, my stomach dropping. Ava asked if I was okay, and I lied, saying I was fine and thanking her for the ride. I got out and stood in the driveway, staring at the empty space, hoping it would magically fill itself back in. Then I pulled out my phone and called Ethan. He picked up on the third ring, sounding as casual as if he were lounging on the couch on a Sunday morning. "Hey, babe. How was work?" he asked. I cut straight to the point. "Ethan, where's my car?" There was a pause, then a laugh. It wasn't a nervous or embarrassed laugh, it was a satisfied one, the kind you let out when a plan comes together. The front door opened, and he walked out in his jeans and the denim jacket I'd bought him for his birthday. He was holding a small rectangular card between 2 fingers, like it was a winning lottery ticket. He stopped in front of me, smiled, and said, "I sold it." I was in shock. The words didn't register. "You what?" I asked. He repeated it and held out the card. It was a bus pass, a monthly pass for the city transit system, brand new with my name printed on it. "Here, you'll be fine. The 47 goes straight to the hospital," he said. My hands started shaking. I wasn't sure if it was the exhaustion or something deeper, a cold feeling that started in my chest and spread outward. I told him the car was in my name, and he couldn't just do that. But he cut me off. "My mom needs a cottage. She's been living in that tiny apartment in the city for 20 years. I found a nice place upstate, a beautiful little house with a garden. She deserves it. She raised me alone after my dad left when I was 8. She sacrificed everything for me," he said. I stared at him, thinking about the 2 years I'd worked double shifts, skipping lunches to save up for that car. It still had our daughter Mia's booster seat in the back, with crumbs from her snacks and a little star sticker she'd put on the headrest when she was 4. Ethan shrugged one shoulder, as if I'd asked him about the weather. "You'll get another one eventually. Mom only has so many years left," he said, pushing the bus pass toward me again. I didn't take it. Ethan and I weren't always like this. We met 6 years ago at a music festival. It was a hot summer day, and I was looking for a cold drink. He walked over and handed me a bottle of water he'd been keeping in his cooler. He had a kind smile, and he remembered my name after just one introduction. He was a carpenter, good with his hands. When he talked about building us a home someday, he had this far-away look in his eyes, and I believed every word he said. We got married a year later in a simple ceremony in a park, with wildflowers and candles. Mia came 2 years after that. Ethan held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, and I thought I'd found the right man. For a while, things were good. We had normal arguments about bills and chores, but we always laughed it off. But Ethan's mother, Vera, was always a presence in our marriage. She lived about an hour away in a small apartment, but her influence was like a shadow. Ethan called her every day, and he started running every decision by her. When I suggested opening a savings account for Mia's education, Ethan said Vera thought it was too early. When I wanted to renovate our kitchen, Vera thought we should save in case she needed something. The night he told me about the car, after Mia was asleep, I sat on the edge of our bed and did the math. My car was worth about $12,000, but a cottage upstate would cost well over $100,000. I realized Ethan hadn't just sold my car, he'd used it as a down payment on a much bigger purchase. I asked him how much the cottage cost. He was brushing his teeth in the bathroom with the door open. He spat, rinsed, and said, $130,000. The car covered the deposit, and I took out a loan for the rest. I gripped the edge of the mattress and asked, in whose name? He didn't answer at first. The faucet was running. I repeated the question, and he stepped into the doorway with an expression I'd never seen before. Ours. It's a joint loan, he said. The room seemed to tilt. I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting. $126,000 in both our names without my knowledge. I stared at the ceiling that night, unable to sleep. The next morning, I called my friend Lucy, who worked as a paralegal at a family law firm. I sat in the kitchen with a cold cup of coffee and told her everything. When I finished, Lucy's voice was sharp. He's committed financial abuse. He had access to your joint accounts and the car title because you added his name to help with insurance. But this is wrong, she said. I knew she was right. I'd seen cases of financial abuse at the hospital, women who were trapped in bad situations, unable to make decisions about their own lives. I'd always told myself I'd never be one of those women. I had a good job, my own income, and my name on the mortgage. But here I was, standing at a bus stop at 5:47 in the morning, in the cold November darkness, wearing scrubs under a thin coat, holding a bus pass, watching the headlights of the 47 bus crawl toward me through the fog. The bus ride to the hospital took an hour and 12 minutes, compared to my old 20-minute drive. I used to stop at my favorite coffee shop, where the barista knew my order. Now I had to stand on a swaying bus, holding onto a plastic strap, looking out at the city through scratched windows. Every day, the practical problems piled up. Mia was 5 and went to preschool 3 blocks from our house. Ethan could walk her there, but what about when she started kindergarten, 2 miles away? What about her dance classes across town? Grocery shopping, doctor's appointments, all the little things that hold a family together became a nightmare. Every time I brought it up, Ethan just said, "Take the bus." People do it every day. 3 weeks after Ethan sold my car, I found the loan documents on the kitchen table under a pizza box. They were half hidden by grease stains, as if he'd forgotten about the $126,000 debt. I opened the envelope and spread the papers across the table. The loan was a 30-year fixed at 7.2% interest, with monthly payments of $856. I sat down and started doing the math. Our mortgage was $1,300, the new loan was $856, and with utilities, groceries, and Mia's preschool, we needed at least $3,356 a month. My take-home pay was $3,000, and Ethan's was around $2,500 when he was working regularly. Lately, he'd been spending weekends at the cottage, fixing things up for Vera. I sat at the table for a long time. The house was quiet, and I could hear the refrigerator humming. I realized that we were on the verge of financial disaster. One unexpected expense, like a flat tire or an emergency room visit, could push us over the edge. Something inside me shifted. I was done being understanding. I was done making excuses for Ethan. The next day, I took 3 important steps. First, I went to a bank across town and opened a checking account in my name only. I redirected my next paycheck there. When the teller asked if I wanted to add anyone, I said no. Second, I called Lucy from the supply closet at the hospital and told her I needed a divorce attorney. She gave me the name of Patricia Hill, who she said was the best. Third, I went to see Vera. The cottage was at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by trees. It was a beautiful place, with a porch that wrapped around the house. Vera opened the door, and her face lit up, but it quickly dimmed when she saw my expression. I asked her if Ethan had told her where the money for the cottage came from. She said he'd told her he'd been saving from his jobs. I told her he'd sold my car and taken out a joint loan of $126,000. The color drained from her face. I didn't know. I would never have let him do this if I'd known, she said, her eyes filling with tears. That evening, Vera called Ethan. I wasn't there, I was at home with Mia, trying to act like everything was okay. But I could tell from Ethan's face when he came home that something had happened. His eyes were red, and his jaw was set tight. He stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at me like I was the enemy. You went to my mother, he said. I told him someone had to tell her the truth. He started to argue, saying he'd done it for his mother, that she'd sacrificed everything for him. I reminded him that he'd sold my car without asking, taken out a loan without my knowledge, and handed me a bus pass like it was a solution. You are the villain in this story, I said. He slammed his hand on the counter, and the sound echoed through the kitchen. Mia stirred upstairs, and we both froze, waiting for her to go back to sleep. Ethan's voice dropped to a low growl. I'm done talking about this. What's done is done. But it wasn't done. 2 days later, I sat in Patricia Hill's office. She was an older woman, with short silver hair and reading glasses on a beaded chain. Her office was neat, with files and labeled stacks. She listened to me for 20 minutes without interrupting. When I finished, she took off her glasses and said, "He can't unilaterally dispose of marital property. The car was a joint asset, and taking out a loan without your consent is fraud. We have options." I filed for divorce on a Wednesday. Ethan was served on a Friday. Our neighbor, Mrs. Lee, told me later that he sat on the porch steps for a long time, slowly turning the pages of the divorce papers. When I came home that evening, he was standing in the doorway. Mia was in the living room, building a tower out of blocks, completely unaware of what was going on. Ethan held up the papers and said, "You'll regret this." I looked past him to Mia, who was smiling as she added another block to her tower. "No, Ethan, I don't think I will," I said. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Ethan hired a lawyer, Max Reed, who was loud and flashy, always wearing an expensive suit and a big watch. Their strategy was to paint me as a vindictive wife who couldn't understand his devotion to his mother. At the first hearing, Max said, "My client sold a vehicle to provide a home for his elderly mother, who has lived in substandard housing for years." Mrs. Thompson's response was to file for divorce and try to take everything from him. Patricia stood up and spoke calmly. "Your Honor, Mr. Thompson sold marital property without his wife's knowledge or consent. He then took out a $126,000 loan without her awareness. When confronted, he gave her a bus pass and told her to deal with it. This is financial abuse." The judge, Judge Miller, reviewed the loan documents, the bank statements, and the text messages I'd saved. She asked Ethan if he'd consulted me before selling my car. He said it was a joint vehicle, but when she pressed him, he admitted he hadn't asked me because he knew I'd say no. A week later, the temporary orders came. Ethan was ordered to make all loan payments from his income only. I was given temporary exclusive use of the family home for myself and Mia, and Ethan was ordered to return the $12,000 from the car sale within 60 days. Ethan didn't have the money. He'd spent all his earnings on the cottage, fixing up the plumbing, patching the roof, and building new cabinets. Patricia filed a motion to enforce the order, and Ethan's lawyer asked for an extension. The judge gave him 30 days. Then, Vera did something no one expected. She put the cottage on the market. Ethan found out when a real estate agent called him. He didn't believe it at first, but when he drove up to the cottage, he had a terrible argument with Vera. She told him she didn't want a home that was bought with money stolen from her daughter-in-law. The cottage sold in 6 weeks. After paying off the remaining loan balance, the realtor's commission, and the closing costs, there was about $10,000 left. Vera sent me a check for $12,000, adding $2,000 from her own savings. She included a note that said, "Zoe, I'm sorry. A mother's love should never cause harm. Please take care of Mia." The divorce was finalized in April. I got the house because it was close to Mia's school. Ethan moved into a small apartment across town. He's seeing a therapist now, and Mia has mentioned that he talks to a lady about his feelings. I hope it helps him understand that love isn't about taking from others. As I sit in my new car, I look in the rear view mirror and see Mia in the back seat, with her booster seat and a big smile on her face. I'm grateful for the new beginning, and I know that I've come out stronger on the other side.